So I thought it was really interesting that the Celtics started both Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford, especially since Rob Williams is no longer with the team. I figured they would go with more of a staggering approach there. But most importantly, it puts you in the predicament of having to put one of your better players on the bench. So like Derek White starts alongside Tatum and Brown, and then you go Horford and Porzingis, and that brings Jrue Holiday off the bench. And, when you're ranking the players on the team, you're probably ranking Tatum first, and then Jaylen Brown, and then Porzingis, and then you're probably ranking Derek White and Jrue Holiday, right? And so, like, to me, I just like the idea of playing your 5 best players together as much as possible. And then it's easy to stagger from there because you have 5 damn good players. You have 5 players who are all definitively top 40 in the NBA. All right, so at least 4 of them are top 40. And then depending on where you have Derek White, like he's probably not too far behind there. He's probably in that 40 to 50 range. So you have like 5 like bona fide, not just starter quality players, but above average starter quality players. So like I like the idea of playing them together. It was an interesting strategy. Porzingis was freaking awesome to start this game. He had this early stretch it was like, a third, halfway through the first quarter. So they run a pick and roll on the right side of the floor with Jayson Tatum. And I want to say it was Daniel House and Paul Reed that were in the action. So Paul Reed's on Porzingis and Daniel House is on Tatum. And as Tatum comes off the ball screen, Paul Reed shows way high to try to take away that pull-up 3 that Jayson Tatum loves to take, right? Porzingis short rolls to the corner. Daniel House identifies that Paul Reed has come out too high to recover, so Daniel House abandons Tatum and recovers back to the post. But he's not really set. He's kind of sprinting back into the play. Tatum identifies it, throws that bounce pass to Porzingis in the post. Porzingis turns and faces and just throws a vicious jab step towards the baseline. And Daniel House just goes flying out of bounds, like literally just falls over on the move. And Porzingis goes into the lane off of the jab step and dunks it with 2 hands. That's that switch beating part of their attack that they didn't have last year. Like Horford, maybe in his prime, could have made that play consistently. But Horford, at this phase in his career, he's just only going to get a bucket on that switch every once in a while, right? Like Porzingis is like, oh, wait, I've got a small player closing out at me in the post. I'm dunking this every time. Like he's just another level of player there, right? So like he beats the switch in the post. Then on the other end of the floor, he ends up with Tobias Harris on a switch on defense. Tobias is in the left corner, and he's working Porzingis off the dribble, drives into the lane, and Porzingis does a nice job of sliding his feet and staying in front. It ends up getting handed off to Daniel House coming through the lane. Porzingis switches onto House, once again stays on his feet, doesn't leave his feet and put himself in a position where he's going to foul because he doesn't need to. He's too damn big. Walls up, and Daniel House ends up throwing up some janky little floater in the lane, and he gets a stop. Then they go down to the other end of the floor. I think it was 2 possessions later. And he runs a pick and roll with Derek White and rolls hard to the rim. And Derek White throws it up. And Porzingis just dunks on the entire team on a lob. Just like a vicious dunk on the lob and pick and roll. And it's like, that's a 3-play sequence that demonstrates what the difference is between Kristaps Porzingis and what you had in the past. Because you were able to beat a switch and pick and roll, something that Robert Williams and Al Horford both struggled with, right? Then on the other end of the floor, you have Porzingis defending on the perimeter against switches. And then on the other end of the floor, you have a real vertical spacing threat, which is something that only Robert Williams could do. So you're taking the best qualities of Horford and Robert Williams, and you're bringing them together, and they're better versions of those qualities. I don't think Porzingis is quite as good of a defender as Robert Williams, but he's close. And when you look at that and you combine it with what he can do offensively, it's a major ceiling raiser. There's another play later in the first half where he's sitting there with the dribble handoff out at the top of the key for Jaylen Brown. And Mo Bamba is pressing way up on Porzingis, like ball pressuring the hell out of him. And Mo Bamba's over 7 feet tall. Jaylen Brown is getting overplayed, like top locked on the dribble handoff, and so he back cuts, and he's wide open going down the lane. And a lot of players can't make that pass out of the center position. Porzingis literally was shielding Mo Bamba off in a full pressure situation and throws a hook pass over the top that hits Jaylen Brown in stride for a dunk. That's just higher level offense. He's just a better player. at that position than what they've had in the past. And that's the exciting part with this year's Celtics team. They're demonstrably better at center, and they're demonstrably better at point guard with the same three guys in between in Derek White, Jayson Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. They're not as deep. Obviously, injuries are going to play a role in the potential success of this team, but if they get to the postseason and they're healthy, they're just going to be a much bigger pain in the ass to deal with than Celtics teams that we've seen in the past. Kristaps finished with 17 points on 7 shots. Jrue Holiday ended up coming in off the bench about halfway through the first quarter for Jayson Tatum, which again, like that's the predicament you put yourself in when you put one of your best players on the bench. Like you're starting that staggering process, and that's great and all for the rotation and blah, 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 blah. But in my opinion, you want to give those core 5 guys as many minutes together as possible because that's the group you're going down with in the postseason. Give them reps. Let them build continuity. So again, like that's just me personally disagreeing with that thought process. Obviously, it's not going to make or break the Celtics season or anything like that, but that's just my personal opinion there. Jrue made a couple of pull-up threes, one off of an offensive rebound and one off of like kind of like a wild step back on the left wing in an ISO, but he missed all 8 of the rest of his shots. He looked a little bit out of place offensively, but that's somewhat to be expected. The Celtics play an entirely different style than Milwaukee. I'd refer to it as like a drive and kick style for the Celtics versus more of like a old-fashioned pick and roll, like shot creation offense like you saw with the Bucks with Jrue Holiday. What I mean by that is like the Bucks didn't have a lot of aggregate ball handling. Like they had Middleton, they had Jrue, they had Giannis, but it was those guys who ran all the action, and then the other guys were mostly spot up players, right? Like you're not expecting to run drive and kick basketball with Brook Lopez, right? You're not expecting to run drive and kick basketball with Pat Connaughton or Wesley Matthews or some of those guys that aren't as good putting the ball on the floor. Grayson Allen was okay, but there wasn't a lot of talent putting the ball on the floor down the roster. So it was a lot of spread the floor, give the ball to Jrue, let him run pick and roll. Spread the floor, give the ball to Giannis, run inverted pick and roll. Spread the floor, give the ball to Giannis. He's going to try to isolate downhill, right? Or give the ball to Chris Middleton. He's going to run a pick and roll, or he's going to go down to the post and post up some smaller defenders. A lot of like brute force offense. I'll give you an idea. Jrue Holiday only ran 1 pick and roll last night for the Celtics. He ran 15 a game when he was in Milwaukee. Boston, they actually run a lot more action, and they will try a bunch of different ways to get downhill. It'll be Tatum as a screener, slipping. It'll be running a dribble handoff for Derek White to get that initial advantage. It'll be Jaylen Brown back cutting out of a dribble handoff, right? Like it'll be any of the guys because they always have 4 or 5 guys on the floor that can put the ball on the floor and make plays. And so as a result of that, like they can really run drive and kick offense where they don't need to slow down and spread you out and run 1 pick and roll. They just got to get the defense in rotation to some extent. And from there, they just play basketball. And they just have too many guys on the floor that can make plays. And so I think with Jrue Holiday, it's going to be an adjustment. But he is a better basketball player, in my opinion, than Marcus Smart, even on the offensive end. So in time, he's going to figure that out. But that's all the more reason for him to move into the starting lineup, in my opinion, because he needs reps with those guys. He needs to learn how to play with those guys so that he doesn't get, caught off guard when you get to a late postseason situation and everyone still feels weird about it. Peyton Pritchard looked really nice, fresh off of signing a contract extension. He dropped 26 points on 14 shots. He hit 5 pull-up threes in that game, including a nasty between-the-leg step back on the left wing. On the Sixers front, they sat James Harden and Joel Embiid. They did come out. I'm sure you Celtics fans noticed this in Philly. This is kind of jarring, but they came out with a crazy defensive intensity that I'm not used to seeing from Philadelphia, and I think that's Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse is a very aggressive defensive coach. He's a big believer in ball pressure and help. He's going to pack the paint. He's going to double. He's going to blitz. He's going to do all that super aggressive stuff to challenge your playmaking. He's going to leave open players on the weak side. That's the rub on Nick Nurse, is he gives up a ton of wide open shots by overhelping. But that intensity was jarring off the screen early, and it caught Boston off guard as Philly jumped out to a little bit of an early lead. Tyrese Maxey was just absolutely cooking early. He hit 4 of his 9 pull-up jump shots, including 2 threes off the dribble. He ran 11 pick and rolls for 13 points. He was 3 for 3 at the rim. Tyrese Maxey, like, here's the thing. There's kind of like this group of 2 guards that you look at that all are kind of from that same period, right? Like it's Tyrese Maxey and Tyler Herro and Jordan Poole. I think Tyrese Maxey's clearly the best player out of those 3 guys. And if he takes a leap and he is a legit, over 50% effective field goal percentage pull-up jump shooter who can play make out of pick and roll and do all of those things, like it makes it so that you don't need Harden as much. And then it makes it more sensical for you to move him for multiple usable role players, right? That's kind of my take is like James Harden's a great regular season innings eater, but we saw once again last year in the postseason his impact dips below to a point where it's borderline hurting the team. And so it like Tyrese Maxey and his development is one of the things that could be a saving grace for this team. It's kind of like, oh my goodness, the Russell Westbrook experiment. It miserably failed for the Lakers. Oh wait, Austin Reeves is incredible. Now everything's going to be fine, right? Like that's the kind of thing that you're hoping for with Tyrese Maxey.